Welcome to Croxton Family Racing. I'm your host, Adam Croxton, and with me as guest host is Patty of Furniture. Patty.
Thank you, Adam. It's great to be here at the League of Champions. Today's races will include the 40s and 50s versus Big Blocks, the Vans versus Vipers, True Blue versus Aerodynamic, and Fire Starters versus Team Aerodynamic.
Thanks, Patty. Out of the Western Conference in our Desert Division, our first matchup is the 13-seeded 40s and 50s versus the 29-seeded Big Blocks. First up for the 40s and 50s is the Grey Rollin' Solo.
He has a nice smooth launch through the loop, out the jail and into bucket 2 for 5 points.
He's been one of our consistent bucket 2 performers, and that will lead his team off with 5 points. Next up for the Big Blocks will be the pink-striped 55 Chevy Bel Air Gasser.
I love the carefree nature of his paint job. Let's see if he can match in points.
And he will not. He is flipped over in the loop and slides into the jail on his roof. 0 points with the DNF. 40s and 50s with 5. Big Blocks with 0.
Next up for the 40s and 50s is the blue Eric Stein rod.
Right you are, Patty. He has a smooth start, but does not trigger the launch in the loop.
Pity to see when they don't complete it. 0 points for his team, and it's still 5-0 40s and 50s over the Big Blocks with 0.
Lining up for the Big Blocks now is the black-striped 55 Chevy Bel Air Gasser. See if he can do better than his counterpart did.
Oh, and he has a smooth run indeed. 5 points into bucket 2, taking all the mistakes his previous partner made and correcting on those errors to give his team 5 points, tying it up.
Right you are, Patty. And with the Big Blocks tying it up, we'll see what the red Ferrari F40 can do for the 40s and 50s.
He has a clean start, but falls out of the loop and turns out to be as useful as an ashtray on a motorbike. 0 points.
Indeed, Patty. 40s and 50s remain at 5, Big Blocks at 5, with the Big Blocks Bone Shaker up next.
Well, in this low-scoring affair, it seems like any points will do.
I know what you mean there, Patty. He has a smooth launch into the loop, out the jail, and into bucket 2 for 5 points. That will put the Big Blocks in the lead, 10-5 over the 40s and 50s.
Though the Big Blocks may be the underdogs, they sure got the 40s and 50s shaking in their boots with that extra 5 points added. Next up for the 40s and 50s is Max Steele. And
his run takes him to a stall right before the loop. No points for him. It will still be 10-5. Big Blocks over the 40s and 50s.
And next up for the Big Blocks is the teal 57 Chevy to try and add some more points for his team.
He has a smooth launch and sent it to the loop, but flies out at the very end. 0 points for him, and it will remain 10-5. Big Blocks over the 40s and 50s.
Great share there, Adam. And the last one up for the 40s and 50s is the Mud Rod. If he doesn't score any points, this one is over.
He didn't make it through the curve in his last run, but it looks like he has a smooth run here into bucket 2 for 5 points, tying it up, and that will put the pressure back on the Big Blocks.
Had with them all tied up, we'll have to see what the red Erkstein rod can do for the Big Blocks.
He doesn't have a completion yet, but this could be his day. He has a smooth launch, but he doesn't make it. 0 points for him, and it's still tied.
With only Big Blocks left and none of them haven't completed the course, it's hard to see how this is going to end up in anything other than a tie, with the red Surf and Turf up next.
That's correct. None of these competitors has finished, so any finish here would be a certain win and would be the first points for each of them individually. But Surf and Turf does not do it. 0 points. It's still 10-10. And following him will be the purple Surf and Turf.
If the other Surf and Turf gave us any clue, this one should end up in 0 points as well. And it does. DNF for him, and it's still tied 10-10 between the Big Blocks and the 40s and 50s.
Absolutely. And the next one up for the Big Blocks is the Street Boss, looking for his first set of points.
And he can't complete it. 0 points for him, and it remains tied 10-10.
And with one contender left to go for the Big Blocks, it's looking more and more like this is going to end up in a tie break, with last up for the Big Blocks being the 41 Willys MSD Ignition. And no sooner than him being launched, he is already off the track for 0 points with the DNF. This one will remain 10-10, and we'll have to walk through to see the tie break.
And as we take the overhead view, we can see there's nothing in bucket 4 or 3. We got 2 apiece in bucket 2. And moving back, right before the jail, we see the pink stripe 55 Chevy Bel Air Gasser breaking the tie, going furthest, and clinching a victory for the Big Blocks.
Right you are there, Patty. The 40s and 50s with 10. Big Blocks with 10. Big Blocks go further, so the 40s and 50s are eliminated.
At the Eastern Conference Lake Division, we have the 20-seeded Vans versus 4-seeded Vipers, with the Chevy Lumina for the Vans up first.
He's been a consistent bucket 2 performer, And it looks like he's going to keep that streak going with another 5 points in bucket 2.
It's been said before, but it bears repeating, that getting those first few contenders out there with points is crucial to a victory.
And with that said, the yellow Dodge Viper RT10 is up first for the Vipers.
He has a nice fast start through the loop, out the gates and into bucket 2 for 5 points. And with those 5 points, he'll tie the Vipers up with the Vans.
Right, you are. And the Vans have been wildly inconsistent. Some of them not scoring ever, and some of them inconsistently scoring. So it should be interesting to see what the engineering department custom 77 Dodge van does for the Vans.
And he goes somewhere over the rainbow, but doesn't fall into his pot of gold at the end there. 0 points with the DNF. Still 5 apiece between the Vans and the Vipers.
Next up for the Vipers is the hit and run Dodge Viper RT10.
I haven't seen that much blood and carnage on the front of a car since a lorry lost its brakes and ran through a sheep farm.
Well, it didn't slow him down at all. He made it into bucket 2 for 5 points, putting the Vipers in the lead over the Vans, 10-5. With the black 70s van up next.
And he's going to have a truly special run to get his Vans back in this.
And this is one of the many reasons the Vans are not expected to win this one.
And it gets launched out of the loop with such ferocity. 0 points, DNF.
The Vans remain with 5 points, while the Vipers still have 10, with the Dodge Viper SRT10 ACR up next.
What a beautiful green colour this car is. Very nice. Too bad he hasn't had a completion yet. And he doesn't again, gets launched out of the loop. 0 points for him. It's still 10-5 Vipers over the Vans.
Indeed. Next up for the Vans is the blue 70s van. He has a smooth launch, but he does not make it through the loop. 0 points for him, and it still remains 10-5 Vipers over the Vans.
It doesn't appear that we're going to see an upset here in this match. The cool one is up next for the Vans.
Some say he's too cool for school.
It's a real shame he's too cool for school, because he would know that 0 points is the worst he can get. And with his DNF, it's still 5-10 the Vans are losing to the Vipers. With their last chance, the Action News 68 Custom 77 Dodge van up next.
He hasn't completed a run yet, and he follows in suit, staying consistent. 0 points with the DNF, and that's how this one's going to finish. The Vans only with 5, Vipers with 10. Take us through our walkthrough, Patty.
Right you are, Adam. We got 0 in bucket 4, bucket 3, 2 for the Vipers in bucket 2, and 1 for the Vans. The remaining contenders ended up falling out of the loop, with the cool one being the exception.
Thanks, Patty. That's how this one will end. Vans with 5, Vipers with 10. Vans are eliminated. Next matchup from our Southern Conference Scrublands division. The 3-seated True Blue take on the 19-seated Air It Out, with the blue time a taxi for True Blue up first.
He's consistently done well, making bucket 2 or better each time. And he has a smooth launch through the loop, out the jail and into bucket 2 for 5 points to start his team off.
With that 5 points, the heavily favored True Blue takes an early lead with the blue drone duty up for Air It Out, leading off his team.
He's been much more inconsistent than the lead off of the other team. And he has a smooth run, all but falters at the end and only ends up with 3 points for a completion.
That unfortunate ricochet off the rim of the bucket means he will not place in any of the buckets. That 3 points will keep their team behind by 2. Air It Out with 3. True Blue with 5.
That'll take us to the Alpine A110 for True Blue up next. And he is chewed up and spit out to the loop. 0 points for him. Still 5-3. True Blue over to Air It Out.
And that unfortunate error for the True Blue will leave the door open for Air It Out's Carbonic, who's up next.
He has a nice start. Through the loop, out the jail. Little bounce, but still makes it to the bucket 2 for 5 points. That'll put Air It Out in the lead, 8-5 over the True Blue.
True Blue has dug itself into a hole. Let's see if White Fang can pull out some points for his team and get him back in this.
Another inconsistent racer. We'll see if he does anything here with a smooth launch. Into loop and out to bucket 2 for 5 points. He puts his team back into the lead, 10-8 over Air It Out.
Air It Out's green drone duty is up next, being the only other one on his team to have ever made a completion. It's up to him to get them back into the lead.
But that green colour, let's hope he has the luck of the Irish. And he does with a smooth run, straight into bucket 3 for 6 points. That'll seal the deal.
Air It Out with 14, True Blue with 10, and it's not looking good with the Peugeot 505, a blast for True Blue. He has not had a completion. It does not look good for them.
And with his launch, he loses a bunch of speed around the curve. 0 points for him, and this will seal the deal for Aerodynamic.
Looks like we have another upset. Aerodynamic will take this one 14 to True Blue's 10. With only Aerodynamic left to go, the gray track Manga. We'll see what he can do.
Looks like he had a stutter start there, losing some traction. He doesn't make enough speed to get through the loop, and he has 0 points. Still 13 to 10 Aerodynamic over to True Blue.
Next up for Aerodynamic is the chipped Good Humor truck. He has not had a completion yet, and he keeps that going. 0 points for him. Still 14 to 10 with the final up for Aerodynamic being the white Good Humor truck. Let's see if he can do better than the chipped.
Either way, they're going to move on with a victory here. His start is terrible, and he doesn't finish any better. 0 points with the DNF.
And that's how this one will finish. True Blue only with 10, Aerodynamic with 14. Take us through our walkthrough.
None for anybody in bucket 4, but we got a finisher from Aerodynamic in bucket 3. We got 3 in bucket 2, 2 for True Blue and 1 for Aerodynamic. And then 1 off to the side there. Only 1 fell out of the loop, and the remainder didn't even make it. But worst being the white Good Humor truck.
The final score for this matchup, True Blue with 10, Aerodynamic with 14. True Blue is eliminated. With our final matchup of the day, out of our Eastern Conference Atlantic Division, the 3-seeded Firestarters versus the 14-seeded Team Aerodynamic, with the purple 70 Dodge Charger RT up to the Firestarters.
And he has a smoother run, setting the pace for his team. 5 points in bucket 2.
That he does, Patty, and with that lead off, his team will have 5, with the Star Fox R-Wing Eruption leading off for Team Aerodynamic.
And that's one of our consistent bucket 2 finishers. We expect more of the same out of him. And with a smooth start through the loop out the tail and into bucket 2, he remains consistent with a 5-point bucket 2 finish. 5 points apiece for Team Aerodynamic against Firestarters.
With the scores knotted up, the Green Roger Dodger 2.0 is going to have to retake the lead for the Firestarters. Let's see if he can.
You know, green's my favorite color, so you know I'm rooting for him. What a smooth launch. Oh, he makes it into bucket 2 easy with 5 points for his team.
And with those 5 points, the Firestarters will retake the lead, 10-5 over Team Aerodynamic. The yellow eruption for Team Aerodynamic is going to have to match or beat that to stay in this one.
He's also been another consistent bucket 2 finisher, and he has a nice clean run into bucket 2 again for 5 points. That'll tie it up. Team Aerodynamic with 10, Firestarters with 10.
And in what seems to be our closest matchup of the day, it has been back and forth and back and forth.
It'll be up to the circle tracker for Firestarters to keep the pressure on.
Right you are, Patty. And he has a smooth launch through the loop, but stutters out of the jail, flips over on his lid for 3 points with a completion. We'll see if that's enough to maintain the lead over Team Aerodynamic.
The Firestarters with 13 and Team Aerodynamic with 10, with the intercooled F3 Shadow Jet up next for Team Aerodynamic.
He has not had a completion as of yet, and that remains consistent. Another incomplete run, 0 points, DNF.
With a string of incompletions for the remaining cars, we might just be seeing the final score at 13 to 10, Firestarters over Team Aerodynamic, though the 64 Continental for the Firestarters up next.
And he has a smooth launch, but stops before he goes into the loop. 0 points. Firestarters still with 13, Team Aerodynamic with 10, with only Team Aerodynamic up from here on out.
And with that, the F1 race car is up for Team Aerodynamic. And his run is poor, 0 points. It's still 13 to 10, Firestarters over Team Aerodynamic, with the red eruption for Team Aerodynamic up next.
He's hoping to have as much luck as the other 2 eruptions on the team, but he does not. 0 points with the DNF. Still 13 to 10, Firestarters over Team Aerodynamic.
And the final racer today is the Tricar X8 for Team Aerodynamic.
With those 3 wheels, he's had trouble making it through, and it looks like he has trouble again, 0 points. And that'll finish this one up. The Firestarters eke out a win, 13 to 10 over Team Aerodynamic. Take us through the walkthrough, Patty.
There's nothing to show in bucket 4 or bucket 3, but there's 2 apiece in bucket 2. And right here is where we see the 3 points that takes him to victory with the circle tracker at the end of the table, followed by everyone behind, and in the back the Tricar X8.
Thanks, Patty. The final score is Firestarters 13, Team Aerodynamic 10. Team Aerodynamic is eliminated. Taking a look at our Western Conference, we see the big blocks will be taking on Team Honda Toyota. The big blocks have won by the skin of their teeth every time, so it'll be interesting to see how well they do against Team Honda Toyota.
And in the Eastern Conference, we see ourselves a tight matchup between the Firestarters seated 3 against 1-0 seated 6. But over in the Southern Conference is the thing that most people are talking about, with the Aerodynamic at seated 19 against Team Ferrari seated 11. 2 underdog teams that are going to be taking each other on.
That's right, Patty. And one of the biggest matchups of next week will be the Northern Conference. Clear winner seeded 5 against the Vipers seeded 4. We look forward to all of it.
We do indeed, Adam. And the round continues.
Thanks again, everybody, for watching. Please subscribe and like our content.
Leave a comment and share with your friends. I'm Patio Furniture.
And I'm Adam Croxton, signing off for Croxton Family Racing. We'll see you next time. Stay safe. Be free.